All right, Jeff, I'm pumped to have this conversation for two reasons. One, you're one of the OGs in this space, and I've seen you online forever. And as I discovered yesterday, since I was on your show, we discovered that you got into this space about a year before me, 2008. But what I love about you, man, is we have a music background. You were a professional piano player. You went from injured wrist, divorce, depression, $500,000 in debt, like had to turn your life around, and you did it. And you found this internet business lane. You've built multiple companies. You've launched an incredible podcast, a best-selling book, Unlock Your Potential. You've made over $100 million online. And more importantly, you help people live the life they're meant to live, and not just win in business, but win in life. You're a father of four. You're a husband. And you're just a good dude. And I enjoyed our conversation yesterday. Selfishly, we got to nerd out on some of the antiquated ways of the internet business space and what's working now. But Jeff, I'm pumped to have you on our show and have you drop some value to my audience today.
So grateful to be here, Graham. Yeah, and I'm excited to just pick up from where we left off yesterday and keep it going.
Yeah, so if you really want to nerd out, like, you're going to have to listen to my episode on Jeff's podcast, Unlock Your Potential, and in this episode, you'll kind of realize they were like back-to-back days. So we're selfishly continuing the conversation, but I just want to start real quick, sort of going back in time, just because I think there's some synergy here, and I think people need to understand a little bit of like the types of businesses you've built, because that really informs your take on things. And you've been in this space for over 16 years. But the question is simple, like, what is your take on the current landscape of digital entrepreneurs, the knowledge income space, whatever you want to call it? Like, what do you see is working today versus when we got started back in the dark ages? Where do you see things going in the next 5 to 10 years? I think you don't have to have a crystal ball, but I'm curious as to your take, because there's a lot of people who have a lot of opinions, but you've been around the block and you've seen it all. So I would really respect what you have to say about this subject.
Well, yeah. First of all, I sort of grimaced. You said 16 years. I'm like, it's 2024. I got started in 2008. Yeah, geez, dang, 15, 16 years. I feel old.
Sorry.
No, I feel mature. How about that?
There you go. Wise.
Seasoned. I will say I'm having the most fun I've ever had in my life. So, age is just a number, right? So I guess to sort of pre-frame your question, you asked a little bit about the businesses that I've been involved in, just so the audience has perspective on my perspective. I got started really high level from 2008 when I first got started in an affiliate marketing platform, did that from really kind of got going in 09 to 12. So whatever, about 4 years, did affiliate marketing, particularly in the high ticket info product space. So I was selling, I got the first thing I bought online was an education program that had great training and really changed my life. So I was an immediate believer and advocate in online education, in which often is what you would call high ticket online education. I mean, look, you can go on Udemy and buy $9 courses all day long that teach you how to, use Excel formulas or, set up, your QuickBooks chart of accounts, or like, there's amazing training, but like the sort of curated, strategic course process that doesn't just get you some skills, but gets you all the way to a result. Usually you're talking $1,000, $2,000. Sometimes you're talking $20,000. And I was a very early believer in this high ticket educational investment model online, partly because nothing could be as bad a value proposition as college. So like people are like, oh, $2,000 for an online course is crazy. It's like, no, $300,000 for a Harvard education, where the average Harvard graduate 12 years after college is making $84,000 a year and spending 40 of that, by the way, paying down their student loans. That's the scam. So, and because I had a good first experience out of the gate with that, that was my jam. I was like, dude, I'm just going to affiliate with the same kind of programs that changed my life. I did that for, like I said, about 4 years. And in that time, I was able to, reset my ground zero, got out of almost $500,000 in debt, actually started earning some real money for the first time in my life, was able to move to a different city. And just, so that was like my phoenix rising from the ashes kind of 4 years, right? Was affiliate marketing. But I got burned out on affiliate marketing for reasons that actually we might come back to because they might be relevant. After that, I started a digital agency. I basically said, how can I take the same set of digital marketing skills that I've acquired and get as far away from affiliate marketing as possible? And in 2012, 2013, there was and by the way, there still is, although the opportunity is different, it's still a similar opportunity with a similar avatar. But at the time, the opportunity was helping traditional, small, in many cases, usually service businesses like plumbers or roofers or carpet cleaners, guys like that, helping them transition from the era of the yellow pages to the era of the Google map. And over the next 5 years, from really 13 to 18, I built a great business we ended up helping 11,000 small businesses migrate from analog to digital, and grew that business up to about 60 employees, did about almost $30 million in revenue in those 5 years. And then I sold that business. I was able to exit that to a software company that just wanted the book of business. And at that point, I was really kind of retired at 39. And so I had this really crazy experience of looking at my life just roughly at the midway point, coming up on midlife, and looking and going, how the heck did this happen? 10 years ago, I was broke. I was literally nearly homeless. I got evicted from my apartment. My ex-wife's parents took pity on me and let me move in with them. But I mean, it was bleak. And then 10 years later, here I was basically retired. And along the way, I also had a couple e-commerce businesses. I never did as well. Both the affiliate and the agency were, multiple 8-figure businesses. E-com, I never got out of the 7-figure territory, but I mean, that's nothing to, sneeze at. And I also actually at one point started an online direct sales company, which was my first attempt. This was 2017 and 18 while I was running the agency. I also kind of got this itch to get back into a lot of the personal development stuff that had been so critical for me when I got started. And I actually created an online direct sales business selling personal development, figured out over the course of 2 years that I loved promoting personal development and creating personal development products, but that I truly loathed the online direct sales model because, and this is going to tie into our conversation, because anything that people are joining because of the compensation plan or the ability to earn commissions by reselling the thing, it's just, there's a toxic first vibration that you kind of never outgrow in the relationship with your customer. And it's just transactional from day one, you could say. So I ended up winding that business down at the same time I was exiting my agency. So there I was, fall of 2018. I had just wound down this direct sales company. I just exited my agency, was sitting on a pile of money, and decided, man, if a broke, homeless jazz musician, high school dropout jazz musician can go from that to this in 10 years. And by the way, along the way, I also got back in the best shape of my life. I was in better, literally the best shape of my life at 39, better than I was at 19. And I got remarried, adopted some kids, just like life checked all the boxes. And I'm like, if that can be true for me, at least in part, basically because of the synergy of personal development and modern digital entrepreneurship, then shame on me if I don't go shout that from the mountaintops and try to share it with other people. And that's what I started doing. And that was fall of 2018. And so out of that, which was a very, almost like whimsical thing. I was like, I'm just going to start shooting content and throwing it out to the world, and whatever happens, and whatever sticks. Well, that actually grew into, shockingly, the biggest business by far that I've ever had, which since then has done well over $200 million in sales.
Wow.
In the personal development / entrepreneurship education space, a concept that I now have coined called life design, which really is the fusion of personal development and entrepreneurship education. And that platform is called Entre. We're actually we're in our 5th year, we're getting ready to relaunch a whole new platform, and I'm having, like I said, the most fun I've ever had.
Bro, that's amazing. I love that you've tried so many different types of businesses. I love the fearlessness there. I'm sure you probably are stacking skills and experiences from every business as you're rolling into the new one. So like with that, because I do want to get into some of the stuff you teach in Entre and in this new platform that you're rolling out here soon, designyourlife.com. I want to really quickly though, like when you look at people who are helping share whatever they know, like to your point, you had this moment in 2018. Shame on me for not sharing what's worked for me. And when we talked about it briefly yesterday, Rory Vaden's quote, like, you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. You're looking back and saying, I was broke, $500,000 in debt, and I could help that person because I'm not that person anymore. I've solved that problem. And that's, a lot of people are getting into this digital space because they've solved the problem. It could be a health journey they've gone on. It could be a relationship skill they've developed. It could be, I have clients that teach English pronunciation to native Japanese speakers. It's amazing what you can make a great living doing these days. So those types of people that are trying to grow or build that business to the next level in 2024 and beyond, what do you see, two sides? What do you see is like not working anymore in your take? Like, yeah, this used to work, but we got to get over this. And what do you see as like a huge opportunity that we could press into for these types of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and it's not lost on me that you asked me a two-part question and I only answered one part of it. So you're kind of re-asking me the second part, which I very tactful. I appreciate that.
I got you.
Yeah. So I mean, it's funny. Like, I actually love the way the internet is going, and I think there's a lot of people who don't love it, but I'm not sure that it's a really reasoned position. It's more of a reflexive position of just like, things are changing and things I spent years figuring out how to make work don't work anymore. And that's annoying because I'm instinctively human and fear-based, and I'm now worried about what it's going to mean for me. Yep. That's not actually a rational basis to make a sort of a moral or a value judgment about a thing. That's just our own self-interest kicking up as a neurotransmitter that we reflexively reject something because it might be hard. So if we actually take a step back and divorce ourselves from the survival instinct and the sort of myopic self-concern and go, is this actually right? Is what's happening right? I think it's so right. And what's happening is the gap between how technology presents us to the world and who we've actually become as a human is closing. If you actually say, what is it that the algorithms are really optimizing for? What they're optimizing for is authentic self-presentation.
Come on.
And that's freaking awesome, dude, because I mean, my personal, idiosyncratic as it is, definition of success that will tell your audience a lot about what I believe and who I am in the world is that success is the extent to which I can be fully and truly myself across the broadest possible range of human experience. And you might say that's a sort of a quirky definition of success. And by the way, the actual literal definition of success is just whatever comes next. So don't get too hung up on what you think it means, because it's just the successor to whatever came before is success. Like, a king, the successor king, or something, right? But, so we can kind of craft that word to mean what we want it to mean. And so I would say optimize your definition of success to then reverse engineer the best version of self that's going to produce the most life fulfillment, and then make success that. And so for me, I'll say it again, the ability to be fully and truly myself, as fully and truly myself as possible across the broadest possible range of human experience. So if you think about most people's lives, we have very different personas or costumes or characters that we portray across different facets of our environment. We have our work persona, we have our home persona, we have our weekend pickup basketball persona, we have our poker night with the boys persona, we have our, drinks night with the girls persona. Like, I want to be equal opportunity here. Now, screw all that, man. Just figure out who you are and engineer your environment so that there's never any succumbing to pressure to be anything other than exactly who the hell I figured out that I am. That's success for me. And I think that the algorithms are optimizing to that definition of success, that you've got to find a way to get confident enough in who you are, clear enough in who you are, convicted enough in who you are, and service-oriented enough in what you offer and what you're trying to give and ask for in return, and that it all converges to a place where it's natural and organic and it's not contrived. And if you just focus on that, my supposition or my proposition is that if you just optimize for that in your life and you give abundantly to the internet will optimize around that and bring you the right people to have relationships with. And I think it's freaking awesome.
Bro, just, yeah, mic drop. I love this so much, and I 100% agree. I think it's so beautiful what you just said. This is something I talk about in my book Rebel, but like you just said it in a fresh way, and it's the same concept. And we riffed on this a little bit yesterday on your show, but I believe that like the secret to success, which you defined, I love your definition, satisfaction, which is a big part of what's going to keep you in business and help you, keeping you want to serve people, is because you're satisfied with what you're doing. You're not hating your life. And then service to others, which is why I think we're on this planet, is like we have something that's valuable. The center of the success, satisfaction, service is your uniqueness. And like the world in the landscape is shifting in such a way that it actually allows and actually rewards people who embrace their uniqueness. And it becomes a win-win. You get what you want. Other people get what they want. You're actually able to operate out of full service to other people, because the best way I can serve people is showing up fully as Graham. And it's not just my wife and kids, but it's the internet. It's my audience. And so, dude, I love that you're bullish and optimistic about this, because it really shifts the table of like, oh, this technique used to work, or this is, like you said, the way I'm used to running my business. And none of us like change, right? Like none of us like change. That's why, Mel Robbins and people are really in the business of helping people navigate change, because change is hard and we need people like it. But it's like you're saying you don't have to change. It's actually the opposite. You just got to be more yourself and let the internet come to you.
Yeah, stop trying to follow the what's working now marketing trend. Like I had a conversation with a good buddy of mine. I'll give him a shameless plug. His name's Aaron Parkinson. He runs 7 Mile Media. They're one of the biggest info product marketing agencies in probably in the world. Think of a big digital marketer, and there's a good chance he runs their traffic. And I was talking to him 2 days ago, I think, and I was telling him about the relaunch, the Design Your Life relaunch that we're doing. And he said I took him through our whole flow, and he said there's one thing that you might want to consider, because based on what I'm seeing, anybody that's in any sort of a transformational space, whether it's health transformations, personal development, relationships, marriages, finances, and anything that's like a business about closing the gap between present and desired states for people. The number one thing that's working, and this totally speaks to what we were saying just a minute ago, the number one differentiator between the people whose offers are crushing it and the people who are kind of stuck in the all too familiar, tension between product experience and the need to recoup our ad spend and the dissonant tension there. He said the people that have essentially resolved that tension for good are the people that are giving their audience free, shockingly up close and personal access to themselves, asking for nothing in return. He's like, anybody that's coming to you saying, hey, can you help me change my life or transform some aspect of my life? The biggest problem you have is trust. We are in like the lowest trust environment we've ever been in. So if you're the one guy that they can actually get on like a 60-minute live Zoom room with and just hear you talk off the cuff, unscripted, probably not even any slides, ideally taking live interactive Q&A or chat with the audience, and they go, I like this guy and I trust this guy. And I now feel like I know this guy, and he hasn't even asked me for anything. Every other conversion, and he said, unless you're a tool, or you suck, right, or you're alienating, or you're out of integrity with who you presented yourself as, and now you're going to be exposed when you have to show up for real. He's like, if all those things accepted, all your conversion problems will resolve if you'll just meet your customer before you ask them for anything.
That's beautiful. So practical, are you saying, or was he saying like do some lives and blow people's minds for free? Or are you talking about one-on-one?
He actually said, no, not one-on-one. I mean, there's a scalability, resource constraint there. He said, like in our case, we have I'll tell the audience, like I'm sure later you're going to ask me like, where can they go and what can they click? And I'll tell them what to expect, right? So you go to our flow is you go to designyourlife.com. There's a link to view a free masterclass, a completely free, no strings attached, no credit card, no trial offer, nothing, just free masterclass. It's an hour class. Watch it, learn everything about, the foundations of what it is that we do and how we do it. And at the end of that, the original funnel was there's a $27 6-day challenge for people that loved what they got in that 1 hour, and they're willing to sort of take 6 days. And I mean, 6 days is a metaphor, obviously a creation metaphor. They're willing to take 6 days and use what they saw in the masterclass to actually literally recreate their life from the ground up through this life design process. So that was the original offer, is free masterclass and then, low ticket $27 6-day challenge. And he said, Jeff, if you will add to that offer that when they finish the free masterclass, there's like an opportunity to register for a free weekly live Q&A with you and your wife and just come hang out with you for an hour. Not only will conversions to the challenge go up, but conversions to every single other thing you ever roll out for the rest of your platform's existence will go up just as a result of that tweak. So that's what we're doing. It's just it's basically a meet and greet that I have to commit to once a week, which I'm excited to because I actually love what I do, because I actually am who I say I am, because I'm not actually out there pretending to be something I'm not.
I love this so much, man. It's so funny how people want to complicate things, and they want the most complicated funnel. Give me the funnel, give me the segmentation, and they're missing the point. They're focused on the technique or the automation or the tool and this fancy thing they saw, Frank Kern or somebody talk about in an ad. And it's like, what you're saying, what your buddy's saying is be a human being. And with the technology we have now to just go live and just answer questions and add value, to your point, even without slides, almost more real and raw, and just like, hey, I can't even hide behind a well-curated webinar. I'm just actually just getting up there and what's your question? How can I help you? Or sharing what's working. You build trust. And I've always said that the power of conversion is getting trust. And so what builds trust? Like spending more time with me. That's why I like long form content. That's why I like live engagements, because if they get to know me, they're going to be like, I know him, I like him, he added value. To your point, whatever you're selling, it doesn't have to be the best copy. They just want to go deeper with you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, for one, I'm excited to do it with my wife. Like, we're going to try it whenever we can. We're going to do it together, because I feel like that's just a whole other level of real. If I was going to try to pretend to be something I'm not, it would probably be easier if I wouldn't also have the most high stakes, potentially volatile relationship in my life right there with me on camera.
Yep.
Like, it's just like, obviously don't literally get naked, but as basically, the word vulnerable comes from the Latin vulnus, means wound. So woundable, to make yourself woundable, to be as woundable as possible is basically the formula. And so much so that, in fact, in the way that we actually define entrepreneurship, I'm a big word nerd, as you've probably already started to figure out from hanging out with me. And I love knowing what words mean. And the word entrepreneur has a really, really rich and beautiful history going back to 19th century French economist Jean-Baptiste Say is where it started. And the word entrepreneur is like this interesting word that what the literal translation is actually one who undertakes an adventure. It's actually a fusion of two words, entreprendre, which in literal French means basically one who swims out to sea and grasps something so that they can bring it back to shore for the good of all the people on the beach that were scared to go out in the water, right? And so then it's like one who undertakes this sort of like value-focused adventure for the good of others. But then it gets applied in really literal sense of like, its function in economic utility, one who reallocates resources in an economy from less productive to more productive means, or however it ends up getting defined. But we've actually taken it upon ourselves in the context of modern entrepreneurship to really reframe how we explain that word to people. And we actually have stopped using the word entrepreneur to explain being an entrepreneur, because I think it has so many associations now with basically being like a funded tech startup.
Yeah.
that it actually does people a disservice where they go, well, I don't see myself as Elon Musk, or I don't see myself as Kim Kardashian or, The Rock. Like, I'm not going to be famous and I'm not going to build deep tech. So therefore I'm not an entrepreneur. So the way we explain entrepreneurship now to the world is actually a combination of two things. What we call valuepreneurship, which we spell VAL-YOU -preneurship, valuepreneurship plus what we call an income vehicle. And so valuepreneurship is basically sort of just a modern spin on high engagement focused personal branding. It's just getting yourself out there to the world, finding using your vibe to attract your tribe, finding your people, enrolling them in the idea that you really are there to serve, not as a manipulation, but because you actually really are there to serve. Let me just say that. Yeah. And as you start to do that, then you reach this point where you go, okay, what's the right income vehicle?
Yes.
And the reason I like income vehicle as opposed to what's the right business, first of all, not every income vehicle is a business. There's actually 4 ways that people generate income in this world: employment, freelancing, which is a direct exchange of skills; business ownership, which is a leveraged exchange of other people's skills that you organize; and then cash flow investing. And there's really different criteria for which income type is right for different people. But in all cases, your opportunities are vastly amplified by starting with valuepreneurship. Literally, even if you just have a job and you have no desire for anything else, if you're also putting out content, creating value, and becoming an authority in a category, then that next job is going to pay better than if you hadn't done that. So we look at valuepreneurship plus income vehicle. And in our process, we have a methodology for helping people find the right income vehicle that we call your entrepreneur DNA. But I think people get way ahead of themselves and they're like, well, am I going to do e-commerce, or am I going to do course creation, or am I going to be a ClickBank affiliate, or what? And I'm like, dude, figure out how to deliver massive value in a way that serves people before you even try to figure out how you're going to monetize or funnelize or productize or whatever. And anyway, that's my perspective, is that the ability to skip that step where you actually become a person of value who gives value, that the ability to skip that step is what's going away. And that's why people are frustrated, I think. But again, I think that just raises the bar and makes the world a better place, and we should be excited about it.
I know, I love that so much. I think the fear that comes up for some people is, okay, if that step goes away and I can't hide behind the system or whatever, and I actually have to show up and deliver value, sometimes, and I get this question, maybe you do, Jeff, is, well, do I have value to offer? Like, I don't have a bombastic personality. I'm not as eloquent as Jeff Lerner. I don't have this crazy story, and they feel they're more run-of-the-mill and average. And so they're actually, like, a guy like me loves when all this stuff falls away and I can just show up online because I can hit record or I can hit go live, and I could add value for 12 hours straight. I just would need like a sandwich somewhere in the middle. But a lot of people are afraid of that kind of stuff, and they feel like, do I have value to offer? What do you say to someone like that? Because I think it's a limiting belief, and it's to your point, they're comparing what they think is adding value, and they don't think their personality has much worth. But what's your take on that one? Like, oh, this is not going to work for me because I'm not this personality.
So I'm going to start with the most aggressive, harsh answer I can give. And then I'll work backwards to like a softer, kinder point of view. If you really don't have value, on what basis do you have the right to expect money? Like, literally, why should anybody pay you for value that apparently you can't deliver? Value is something you exchange with the market, and you earn it by going first. So like, you're like, I don't know how to go first, and I don't think I can. Then like, settle, dude. Stop wanting things that you can't have if you're not willing to see yourself that way. That's like the no punch pulled truth. And literally the word deserve, we use this word a lot. It means from service. The Latin, from the place from which I serve. Whatever I deserve is defined by the place from which I serve. So if I'm not serving from a place of delivering massive value, I have no basis for expecting much of anything. So let's get that out of the way up front. Okay, now let's use you as an example. Why do you have the ability? I know we talked yesterday. You're an introvert. You didn't come out of the womb quoting Marcus Aurelius or whatever you do. Like, why do you have value to deliver like you do?
Ooh. Well, so I think I have value because I've solved problems, and I can solve other people's problems or help them solve the same problems I solve.
Was that easy to solve problems?
No.
Did it take
painful?
Did it happen really fast?
Nope.
Were you able to do it without having to spend 10 times more time learning than you have spent sharing what you've learned?
No.
In other words, there was no shortcut to becoming a person of great value.
Correct.
And so now you get to walk around with the confidence of being a person who knows that they have value and is comfortable delivering it, probably on a moment's notice. Because you earn that shit. And so it's like saying I don't have value to offer is saying, like, I don't have a body I'm comfortable displaying at the beach. I don't know what to say, bro. Eat cleaner and work out for 2 years. What you feed yourself combined with how you exert yourself equals ultimately what you have to offer in time. And there's not a shortcut, nor should there be. That's what I love about the internet, is it's taking away all the shortcuts, which means it's taking away all the imposter opportunities.
I really appreciate your brutal honesty, because you're 100% correct. I think what people need to hear is they need to be called up higher. They need to be set to a higher standard. And I think people do have value to offer, but they're looking in the wrong place, and they don't see. I think it's so easy to not see the value we have, because to your point, I find people, maybe you find this, Jeff, I find clients or students who are trying to start a certain type of business, but if I were to sit down with them and ask them questions, we would soon find out that you're starting the wrong type of business. Like, you've really solved these problems over here. You might only be 25 years old, but you've had 10 years of dealing with this issue, and yet you want to start this glamorous business over here, but you really have only read a couple of books about this thing. Like,
Yeah.
why don't you build your business around the thing that's your unique story? Even if it feels painful or not very glamorous, there are other people that have walked through that pain, that the cards that you were dealt, and you've navigated those. You've got a decade of that experience. You can add way more value without having to try hard over here. But they've never considered that their biggest pain is their biggest path forward to add value to people. And I don't know if you see that as well, where people are looking for the wrong place to add value.
Yeah, that is literally why we crowbarred the concept apart into valuepreneurship plus income vehicle. That until you get clear on your valuepreneurship, which is exactly what you're describing, who am I? What do I offer? What do I stand for at the level of conviction? Even the word profession, to like restore the meaning of the word profession. It's not what you do to trade your time for money. It's what you profess, your profession of faith, your profession. What is it you profess in this world? And people are like, I don't profess anything. I'm just trying to get a job. Awesome. And I don't mean to sound non-empathetic. It sounds like you're very clear on what stage you're at, but you're not at the stage where you need to be worried about what income vehicle you're going to use to channel the value, because you haven't really figured out who you are and what you haven't figured out what your values are, much less what your value is. And there's just no shortcut to all the work. Now, where I do start to sound a lot more empathetic, and where I really do, like the edge in the message that I just gave comes really as a kickback against the BS that is so common on the internet. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. That's where I seem to have that edge. It's like, no, I'm gonna shoot you straight, and it's gonna be sort of unapologetically maybe a little painful to hear. But where I really, really soften is, it's nobody's fault that we live in a world that is so geared around diminishing our own perception of or belief in our intrinsic individual value. Like the world, and I don't think that this is new. I just think that a lot of modern trends have brought it closer to the surface, because just generally speaking, we're not actually at risk of most of the dangers that would warrant the level of like neurological hijack and overwhelm that we often experience. Like I think the prevalence of anxiety today I don't mean to sound unkind, but because I know it's a real struggle that a lot of people have. But like if you brought somebody back from like the 12th century and were like, let me show you the modern world and let me tell you about how anxious everybody feels. It would be like, have you ever survived the bubonic plague? Have you ever had your feudal lord like bury you in dirt up to your neck because you were 5 minutes late for work and starve you for 10 days? Like there was a lot of stuff that passed for most of human history that makes our current context of anxiety actually pretty laughable. Like you can't even go to prison anymore for racking up debt. For most of human history, if you couldn't pay your bills, they throw you in debtor's prison and you die. Like what are we anxious about now, right? And so, again, I don't mean to be unkind, but it's always been there. But now that we live in a world without so many legitimate mortal threats, there's a lot more awareness of the sort of threats at the level of personality or ego or self-conception.
Yes.
It's like we have a lot more bandwidth to apply to those things. And so we're so hyper aware and sensitive now of all the ways that we feel psychologically frail.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that's nobody's fault. That's just a function of growing up inside of a system, a superstructure of systems that basically healthcare, education, employment, and retirement is this sort of meta superstructure system of systems that's basically designed to conscript us from birth, to turn us into institutional dependence, where we're dependent on institutional healthcare, then we're dependent on institutional education, then we're dependent on the government for the student loans that got us through institutional education, at which point we become dependent on institutional job models, because most of us won't pay off our student loans until we're almost 50 now. And then at that point, we're dependent on the institutional financial services system because we're stressing about retirement, which becomes more and more this, sort of mathematical impossibility, where we end up then just circling back to dependency on the government to bail us out of all of it. And that model, that social model, ultimately results in people with massive insecurity and massive artificially diminished perception of self-value.
Wow.
And that's nobody's fault, but it's everybody's problem. But I think the best service that guys like us can do in the world is to call it out for what it is and stop, and not that you and I do this, but not allow the pretense that there's any solution other than just going right through that, as terrifying as it is.
Bro, so well said. I love talking to you, Jeff. I feel so stimulated. My brain is very awake, and you're connecting a lot of dots. I love the way you think. And this is kind of really meta, if I can just pause for a second. Everyone who's listening, when you're listening to this, watching this, look at what Jeff is doing. Jeff is being uniquely Jeff. He is bringing his way of thinking, his brilliant mind, the things that are interesting to him, his points of view, and then the way he curates what's happening around the world. Like his take on the modern digital economy is a unique Jeff Lerner take. And that's what's making this conversation interesting and adding value to all of us, because he's 100% being him, which means like, I trust Jeff. I'm like curious into how you think about this more. Unless I don't like it, then I'm going to be able to say, okay, Jeff's not my guy, which is great. Then I can leave and I'm better served with some other guru, or, and Jeff's not wasting his time trying to convert me to something that I'm not going to buy anyway. So I just love how in a meta moment, you're displaying this press into your uniqueness. In my language, be a rebel, like find yourself by not following the crowd, because once you find who you are, then you can really show up in all the spheres of life and add value. And to your point, it's so much easier to be you, and you have so much more peace. And something you said online recently is like, how like your self-esteem and your self-worth is really, really important to keeping your dreams alive. Like that's why you're talking about, that's why you work out, that's why you get up early, that's why you keep your commitments in these routinized things, because then you're like, I'm a person that has self-worth because I keep my own commitments, and that affects in a large part these other bigger things like my business, my dreams, which is a cool connection I saw you talk about online. Feel free to riff on that if you want to. But to me, that self-worth, that confidence comes from accepting this is who I am and I have value to offer, but not for everybody. And I think we got to get away from playing this game of I got to appeal to everybody. And you're just doing a marvelous job of that, even in this conversation.
Well, I appreciate that. I feel like the universe, I'll just call it God because that's my term for it, but whatever anybody wants to call it, it really gives us all the exhibits that we need to make the case to reach whatever verdict we need to reach in whatever aspect of our life we're confronting at any given time. It's always there. And for me, it's literally like a chain link. Like yesterday, you and I met. I recorded a number of podcast episodes yesterday. But I mean, even at the level of the podcast I recorded yesterday, it's like just the stacking of evidence to lead toward the conclusion that is inevitable if I just hold my eyes open wide enough. So yesterday, after our episode, a lady came on my show named Ashley Stahl, who runs one of possibly the sort of primary or largest or most successful or most preeminent, whatever the adjective is, agencies in the country that books people for TED Talks. And so we had a whole hour that's kind of the same thing. I mean, finding your TED Talk is really a metaphor for finding your profession or finding your purpose or finding your unique message or your voice or your USP, like whatever you want to call it, right? And we were talking about she was basically saying the same thing, that like, because we were trying to sort of create a formula to help whether somebody actually wants to give a TED Talk or not. The point is, like, if you can figure out what your TED Talk would be, you've probably done a really, really productive exercise in figuring out who you are. And that was actually one of our conclusions, and it might have even been on a different episode yesterday. I literally did 4 episodes yesterday. I don't remember what it was. But it was like, I think she was the one that said, don't do what you love. Do who you are. And that's, and the reasoning there, and I'll sort of stitch all this together, is that if you just start with what you love, first of all, you're probably going to ruin the thing once you actually start turning it into your career or your work. Because anything that you work seriously at, you're going to experience a very wide range of emotions about, and they're not all going to be love. So that's not actually a logical basis to pick the thing that you're going to work at the most. It's actually, I would say it's the thing that you seem to be the most drawn to across all range of positive and negative emotions. The thing that you just can't walk away from, the thing that you will suffer for the most, the thing, and by the way, suffering and passion, Latin word is passio, means the same thing. The root word of passion is suffering. The thing that you've suffered for, the thing that you just cannot stop thinking about. It keeps you up at night. The reason I have original things to say is because I basically am only interested in talking about the things that I obsessively love thinking about in the first place. There are a million things you could try to lead this conversation into where I would bow out and say, Graham, that's not my jam. I'm not your guest. I got nothing to say there. I seem to have a few things to say about a few things because they're the few things that I've spent the majority of my 45 years thinking about. And in a very real sense, it's that which we ought to do most is that which we already probably think about most. And that's a really simple heuristic that's a hell of a lot easier than like taking some 97-point quiz to figure out what our passion is.
Dude, it's so good. Soren Kierkegaard has that haunting quote, the most common form of despair is not being who you are. And it's like, man, if this is a great time and place to be who you are, and you can then attach an income vehicle in your language to who you are. And there's just never been more opportunity where in the past, who you were meant nothing to the giant machine of industrialization and how you make a living. And now we have the opportunity to be fully ourselves and add value in the marketplace and make a great living, which is awesome.
Here's what I'll say about what you just said. Sadly, for most of human history, or even if we just go to like, let's say post-industrial revolution, even 20th century, era of the corporation, who you are only mattered if you qualified for it to matter by being a part of the right predetermined group, which basically means in most corporations for most of the 20th century, if you were a white male who either went to the right college or came from the right family or was, otherwise, had some pedigree credential, then who you were did matter. Because they would take the subset of white males in a company who checked some other, box, and then within that subset, they would go, okay, let's elevate the people of the highest character. Let's elevate the people of the greatest ingenuity or creativity. Like it actually mattered. The problem is there was the majority of people where there was no ability for it to matter because they weren't part of the right club.
Couldn't get in the door. Yeah.
But that, block out what the media has to say. The reality is that's not true anymore. who you are now does actually matter. I don't care if you're a Korean teenager or an African American, septuagenarian, or a transsexual 40-something, or a white guy like us. It actually, now that's what's happened, is that we all qualify to get to be in the Who We Are Matters Club. And that's where I think you and I were talking yesterday, where it's so maddening that people are so eager to camouflage who they are by trying to pick one of these prefabricated identities to associate with.
Yep.
Which it's like, this is finally, for the first time in history, it actually, you're free to be judged solely on who you are, and yet we're all so desperate to associate with a group rather than stand out as an individual. And it's tragic, because, and I think history is going to look back on this moment in time and go, man, they were way freer than they realized, and a lot of them squandered it.
Wow. Yep. That's profound. Yep. I think you're right. I think we have an incredible opportunity. This conversation has been amazing. We have an incredible opportunity, I think, in my sort of closing thoughts on this whole conversation, to really make a difference and enjoy our lives and learn and develop ourselves if we just have the guts to do it. And I think guys like Jeff, what you've created, and like everyone should go to designyourlife.com, watch the masterclass and get into the process. I know you've got so much that you guys have worked meticulously on to engineer. I love how you're combining personal development and the income vehicle, because I do think, to me, they always go together. Like I love business primarily because it's an income vehicle to allow me to develop as a person and be a better husband, father, and contributor to my community. So go to designyourlife.com. I have one final sort of segment question that I ask everybody, Jeff, here, and I want to respect your time. This can go in any direction now, so I know we can pivot, but it's called the Golden Rule segment, and it's really simple. You've got 4 kids. If your kids forgot everything that you and your wife taught them, everything, unfortunately, except for one piece of advice or one piece of wisdom that they actually would carry with them the rest of their lives and never forget, much like a golden rule, what would you want that to be for them?
It's tattooed right here on my arm. It's a Jim Rohn quote. Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better.
So good. I love Jim's stuff. I love that. Mic drop. That's perfect.
There you go.
Bro, love it. This was amazing. Thank you for the stimulating conversation. Thank you for your passion, sort of, to be a little meta. You just shared that. Thank you for your stance on things. And like I said to you, I think yesterday on your show, thank you for being one of the good guys in the space who really is making a difference, and you're not just hawking products. And you have a great opportunity to help a ton of people, and you're taking advantage of it. And I love it, man. Keep doing what you do.
Thanks, Graham. It's been a blast. Thanks for having me on. And sounds like I'll see you in person next month. So looking forward to that too.
Yes, sir.